What's up, guys? Welcome back. I am back home in Chattanooga, Tennessee after the 4,000-mile cross-country trip to go get the flexible clipper bus. If you guys haven't seen the last episode, please go back and watch it. It's over an hour long. My father and I hauled a 30-foot deck over gooseneck trailer all the way out to the Colorado border in western Kansas from New Hampshire and went to pick up a 1946 flexible clipper bus that I couldn't help myself buying on the cross-country drive home from the Overcrest rally. As if I wasn't emotionally and financially tapped enough after building that car in California, driving to Utah, the rally, and then 2,000 miles home, I had to stop in Kansas and buy a bus. But as I mentioned in the episode, it's been a dream to acquire a bus like that, with patina like that, to build a bagged and bodied Ludwick's Garage mobile merch store. So that thing is up in New Hampshire. I don't have the room for it here. I don't. My time here was always meant to be temporary. The plan was to always end up back in New Hampshire, but I don't have the space for it. So it's up in New Hampshire right now, but I'm going to be back up there in just a few weeks because in basically 2 weeks, we're driving to St. John, New Brunswick, Canada from down here in Chattanooga for the Complex Union Show roll call. Now, you guys have heard me talk a lot about this because this is the hard push I'm making on the Auto Union 1000 SP. To not have it done, it's not going to be running and driving, but to have it rolling, steering, and able to air up and down, kind of be ready to roll into the show and just air it out and have it at the show at the stage I currently have it at. So I can share it with you guys, anyone that's going to be at the show. So that's what we're getting back to now that we're back in the shop. What we're going to be doing today is working on the front half of the frame. We've got a lot to do. I just started putting the final list together. I've got way too much to do. Frame, front bumpers, mount the grills, headlights, the transmission cradle riser. Got to cut the sills still. Man, there's just so much to do. And then the booth. This is only half of what I got to do for the booth and all my merchandise. So today, I'm going to be working on the front part of my frame design. I haven't designed it yet, but the bumperettes, the two bumperettes, there was one over here and one over here. They mounted to the frame originally, so there's no mounts for it on the 1000 SP body, so I've got to make those mounts. You can tell there's a huge dent here. We'll have to address that at some point simply because the grills won't fit now because of that dent. And I bought a whole nother 1000 SP because it came with a garage full of parts and had a set of grills. I couldn't find a set of grills anywhere in the world. There's only a dozen or so known to exist here in America of these cars. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it down on the ground for right now. I'll put the bumperettes on. I'll take some measurements. I left these frame rails open. I didn't do anything off the bottom of these yet because my fuel cell is going to have to go here at some point, and I don't know if I'm going to have to get a custom fuel cell made or not, and I don't need that done for complex. I'm going to come off of these and try to figure out where down here I can put some bumper mounts. Well, let's get them mocked up. I'll show you guys what they look like. All right, well, I brought the grills down. You can see they're a two-piece grill and insanely rare. I can't even believe I have a set. I've got the passenger side just sitting in there mocked up. I've got one of the bumperettes just pushed on with a couple of blocks on the back holding it up. And some of the original mounting pieces were still in this crossbar, and I just spent forever with a can of PB Blast and some pliers and working it back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. Was able to get these wing nuts out. They're a wing nut stud combo, essentially. Got them cleaned up. They go over this lip here, like that, and ultimately pinch the bottom of the grill. And on the inside here, you can see the frame of the bumperette. Comes in from the back of the chrome piece, and there's two mounting holes right there. And they're slotted just like the rear bumper. I've just got it sitting on some blocks now. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come off of this bar and build down to a plate that'll have some nut certs or just some holes. You put a couple of through bolts. I have the corner mount tapped and the threads cleaned, so there's a little bolt holding the edge on the corner. And I have the grill kind of tentatively mounted. I know we're working with a lot of like not factory angles and lines here right now. I've got a big piece of angle iron that's tack welded to the body with a piece of 1-inch square on top that's also tack welded to the body but solid welded to the angle iron. You can see I brought this a little too short, so we're going to connect that, and ultimately this whole thing is going to get connected to the front. I've got this piece of 1-inch square along the lip that I've drilled some holes in that I'll plug weld to it. And what that's going to do is that's going to give this some rigidity, because this here is going to be the lowest point of the front of the car. So we're going to try to reconstruct this side. This side doesn't have the tab with the hole on it. So I've actually done some CAD work and emulated the other sides. All I have to do now is make it out of steel and find the appropriate location for it, so this mount on the bumperette lines up with it. All right, guys, well, I'm recreating what I did on the other side. We've got our 2 mount holes for the bumper, plus a random hole that was already there, but I've welded on this equal length piece of 1-inch square stock, which is basically just like an extender off of the angle iron to weld to the body. So this is where the bumper will mount to. This is the face of it. And then this top piece will essentially get welded to the body of the car. And this end will actually receive the frame I'm going to kind of come across the front with. So I'm going to bring one out to there, and I'll bring one out to there. All right, I just finished up some welding on both sides, and we are pretty solid. Got the driver's side welded in as well. And I think what I'm gonna do in the front and the back, actually, I'm gonna do just like I did on the 700. And what I'm gonna do on the SP is use leather strap belts, just like I did on the BMW here. But you can see here, I laser engraved the Ludwick's Garage L right in the leather. Not a lot of people notice that because it's so low to the ground when it's aired out. But I've already picked up some belts, some genuine leather belts, so I've got the buckle and the loop and all that to work with. The thing about the trunk is I have to recreate some of the channel here because this is all gone. It is rotted. I swear that anyone that comes across these videos that's an auto union DKW enthusiast that hates seeing one be modified in such a way, you need to remember all of these things. There's literally nothing left. Too many parts of this car. So for the sake of the time we have for complex union, I might just weld on a couple pieces of flat stock at the back here. Since the trunk will catch the sides, I'll just put a couple here just so it grabs. Well, for the first time since I brought this thing home, it's actually got a trunk back on it. in the future I want to redo the whole thing. But for now, these will be just plug welded, one spot in place on either side of the actual lock mechanism. And that should support it for now. Next, I have to get this thing sorted out. Since all of this is rotted and there's literally nothing left, if I bring something out to a hole that acts as a guide for that bar, we should be able to push this up just enough to get your fingers underneath. Because when you close it, it sits pretty flush now. Pretty happy with those stops. That's enough for now to keep that thing sat there. All right, well, this was a simple yet effective solution to keep this located, right? Now that can release, so this isn't trapped here forever. I can push that pin through if I need to remove all this since I welded this in. I am gonna make these smaller because, as I'm sure you guys could probably imagine, if you put your hand in the engine bay and you catch the corner of that, you're getting cut. So I'm gonna shorten them up and I'm gonna wrap them like some rubber channel and cover them in that. This is what we're working with. Now with that guide, I can push the release button and get it up enough to get my fingers underneath it. So that has worked exactly the way I was hoping it would. This looks pretty good. All right, so we're back up in the air. Sam and I are going to address this guy. I know a lot of you guys have been in the comments saying, just leave it, it adds character. I'm with you. I would totally do that. But as you can see, it will not even remotely fit the other grill. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get in here, and Sam here says he will not cut this. So this was two pieces, right? So there's a layer of metal here and a layer of metal there. And where the dent is, they've sandwiched together, right? So they're basically one piece. We don't want to hammer both layers. So I'm going to start cutting here and work my way in until they get real close to each other and try to separate the two so we can cut this inner layer away so we can start working on just this outer layer. Well, it's far better than it was. And like I was just telling Sam, we're working with an area where there's no paint. So we don't have to worry about any paint reflections and any ripples. We're just trying to make this better than it was. We've given up on trying to bend this trim out, and the grill's leaned back enough to where I don't think this is gonna be in the way anyway. So we're cleaning this up. Looks better than it did.
Hey, body work on rusty cars.
I know, yeah, seriously. Not only do I have the factory clamps guiding it and holding it in, I put a few through bolts through it too. We got one there, and we've got one there, and one there. They're in. We got a little bit of a gap at the bottom, but I mean, for the damage we have on the front of this car, this isn't that bad. All right, so the grills are in. Let's get it down, and we'll work on the hood, and we'll start messing with some of these leather straps. And yeah, we'll get 2 straps on the front, 2 straps on the back. We are almost done and almost ready to tick this off the dry erase board. All right, guys, we got the hood on, not without a ton of like grinding and finessing, because this hit in the front just made everything wrong. Even over here, You can see the stress cracks in the paint there. This whole body line for the hood is all off. There's a big dent there. And obviously this side in the back here has the hood had always hit. Before I even got the car, this whole rain tray had just been like pried apart and was just all like dented. For right now, this is as good as it's gonna get. It really is. Which, you know, this gap will drive me insane, but we're not gonna spend a ton of time. I clearanced this a little bit. I took a little bit of material off the inside of this, and this is sitting a lot better farther up. But I really want to show you guys this. Now, this is going to be the next step on that front end. Back about a year ago, maybe, a guy from Oregon reached out to me and asked me if I was interested in some parts for the SP. Now, I think he's got two of them. I think he's got a convertible and at least one coupe. Pretty crazy because of how rare these cars are. But he had some new old stock clear markers. How sick is that? Well, I think those clear markers really changed the look of the car for the better, especially with the new H4 Hellas. Yeah, I'm really digging that. I'm not digging the hood gap. That is what it is for right now. Just the way it's got to be, unfortunately. But the SP's looking more like a car with new headlights, new markers, the grill's in it, the hood's on. We're slowly inching forward. We got our dust caps on. All right, guys, well, we went to the computer, and instead of making all the brackets that are going to hold down the leather straps on the front and the rear by hand, decided to go to the computer and just design a little bracket that'll sandwich the leather belt. And I'll put some through bolts right through this plate and the belt, sandwiching it to the car. Oh no! All right, guys, well, that is the hood and trunk sorted out. Obviously, our body lines on the front end aren't ideal, but for now, with what I have here in the shop to work with, this is gonna be good enough. But we've got our straps on. That was on the docket since the beginning of this project. I knew that rather than messing with rebuilding latches and mechanisms and all that, where they had all completely rotted away, wanted to go this route. This is very vintage German race car. Le Mans, the early W194 300 SL Mercedes. You see a ton of old German race cars from the 40s through the 60s using these leather buckle strap style trunk and hood latches. So if you remember some of the first episodes of this car, it seemed to me that this car may have been some sort of race car or track car at some point in a previous life. The magnetic numbers stuck to the inside of the trunk, the race belts that were inside it, the race lap belts. But even though it's not going to be a race car for the second chapter of its life, or maybe the third if you consider it's sitting and rotting away its second chapter, it's got some German vintage racing styling, which is what I'm really, really into. You know, we've got the vintage BBSs on it. We've got the leather buckle straps now. Yeah, this thing is, I don't know. We got a lot more to do. But that's going to do it for this episode. I have a hard time believing that this episode started with the bumperettes. That was like a week and a half ago. I've just been multitasking so hard on everything else here in the shop, trying to get as much done. Off camera, I realized that these two wouldn't fit in my enclosed trailer, so I pulled them both outside and loaded them up on my open trailer. Pulled the winch out, winched the auto union on, drove the 700 out for the first time. I started this thing for the first time in months. There's been a ton going on behind the scenes. Kayla's been a huge help. We've been just cranking on booth setup and merch and displays and signage and all that sort of stuff. All right, well, I'm gonna end it there. Thank you guys so much for watching and for all of your support. Stay tuned for more episodes coming very soon. More progress on the 1000 SP and time for roll call. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time.